What's up, everybody? Chris Jacobs with another episode of Griot's Garage Cars We Can't Sell. Today's ride is a 1966 Chevelle SS convertible with a 4-speed transmission. From weddings to burnouts to mechanical issues, you're going to hear quite a few stories about this one. Here's Nick and Richard Griot to tell you all about it.
So this is another car we can't sell.
Yeah, 1966 Chevelle 396 SS. Pretty rare car until I got done with it.
Yeah, I think it was numbers matching, but it was all the wrong numbers, as I recall.
Well, he had drum brakes. He had 4-inch tires, and I don't know who puts 4-inch tires with a 396. And then he had a 2-speed power glide and a bench seat. So we changed all of that. So now has disc brakes, 16-inch wheels, tires that actually grip, and brand new 502 in it.
Yeah, so I know this about you a lot. You take something wholly to somebody else and you totally destroy it and make it your own. But I think the amount of time that you've owned this car and the amount of use that we've gotten out of this car, it's all justified. And, again, numbers matching, really what we're talking about is somebody wants the best numbers, right? Yeah. And narrowing it down to increase the rarity. And yes, while it may be unique that this car stayed together and was built back to the spec of 60 years prior, there's a lot more that you can do to muscle cars these days to improve them. And that's really what the goal was. It wasn't to tear something up, right?
No, and I still have the 14-inch wheels that are all date stamped and the skinny little white wall tires. We buy cars and fix cars, obviously, to drive.
Yeah. So I'm going to take credit for this car in a lot of ways because, I grew up under your tutelage, pretty much.
That's a shame.
German or nothing, right? And when I was coming of age, 14, 15 years old, outside of some weird Pontiac Aztec love, I gravitated more towards American cars. Your goal with me and all my siblings was you were going to teach us what was in your head about working on cars. And so we got to pick a car. And the car that I picked was a second-gen 1971 Camaro. And I think in that furious early eBay Motors searching, something happened to your brain.
Yeah, I definitely had a switch that flipped. This was the first American car. Well, actually, I owned Jeeps before that.
But muscle car.
Yes, but this car for the American body type, which is like 6 feet and wide, all the dimensions are great. And whoever designed the ergonomics of this car, I mean, the steering wheel fits perfectly. Your clutch and your accelerator pedal, I mean, it's all perfectly aligned. So it's just really relaxing to drive until you want to just whomp on it.
Yeah, and whomp on it, I think we got lots of stories about whomping on it. But so that was around 14 to 15. Finally decided on the second-gen F-body, which at the time were not in vogue, right? They were really cheap.
They were cheap.
And I remember that turd arriving in our garage and working on that with you for very many years. But so 2001, I think I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so and you were saying that those two cars, or this car came on the same trailer.
It did. Because I pulled both of those out of Canada. And one was your Christmas present, which was a Camaro. And then, Groundhog Day present for myself was the Chevelle.
Do you remember what you paid for it? Because it was a full rotisserie frame-off restoration, perfectly functioning car.
I want to say I paid like $24,000 for it. And it was perfect. I mean, and the paint is still really, really, really nice on this.
Yeah, and if you've watched the muscle car market, that was peak hysteria. I mean, that's when Mopars were starting to, touch 7 figures. I mean, everything was $200,000. So a $25,000 complete convertible Chevelle that maybe, again, the numbers were bad, but it's a handsome color combination. That's a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than black and white. And then there's, if a body looks great in white, it looks great in all colors. But back then, $24,000, when the Canadian dollar was probably like 50 cents to the dollar, the guy probably thought he robbed me, But I couldn't. There's no way that you could restore a car back then, even for $24,000, much less buy one.
Yeah. And so what I know about you is, if it ain't broke, break it.
break it. Yeah.
or take the best that exists and make it better, which is a mantra we tend to live by in all of our other business ventures. But so you got the car complete. I was tinkering with my Camaro. We were taking it apart, smelling the cancerous carpet within it. And something, switched, and you said, let's dump some money into this thing. So take us through the project and who did it.
Yeah.
And
well, first of all, I drove it, and the 2-speed power glide. I'm like, gosh, I don't drive automatics.
Boring.
And it had the 396, which had plenty of power, but it didn't even brake. I mean, who puts a huge big block in a car and then puts 4 drum brakes on it? Tiny drum brakes, because it had to fit, the 14-inch wheels. And so I just thought, okay, let's go over to J&L. They'd been doing our race cars at the time. And I just gave him a laundry list. I want a bulletproof motor that I can, start. So we got a brand new 502 in it. I want it to stop. I want it to turn. And I want to get rid of the bench seat.
Yeah. And, the transition from a 2-speed to a 4-speed. So that's a big deal, right? The engagement, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the 2-speed power glide, it was a great transmission, but I just wanted, a little more interaction. And I think, a nice manual transmission does that.
Yeah, I think
Rock Crusher or something, M22 or whatever.
So when this car was under restoration, I was going back and forth to J&L and getting feedback on parts for my Camaro, and eventually ended up interning there. And I remember one of the other things is J&L is really a race car builder.
Yeah.
Right. And so they took this and they said, oh, American car from this era, we set it up like an American race car for this era. So very heavy springs, right? So that improved the handling. And then the rear end, they set up like a Trans Am car, right? So the springs that are in the rear end.
Yeah, it hooks up really, really well.
They're overkill.
Yeah.
But that was just how they knew to do it. One of the other things, I love that you got rid of the bench seat, because the console within it and the bucket seats, it just adds some elegance to it. The shifter is simple and right where you want it to be.
The knee knocker tack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't graft a big, odometer dash. No offense to odometer, would look very inappropriate in this car. A period correct tachometer in a spot that's not obnoxious. So you actually know there's no such thing as mileage or MPG in this car. It's just miles per gallon.
It's about 8 miles per gallon.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
the steering wheel is, just a hair smaller.
It's a Corvette steering wheel. And then you did do the Corvette rally wheels in 16s. I think they're about 8 in front, about 9 to 10 in back. Probably still too little rubber. But I think when we talk about doing burnouts in this car, and I'm generally the impetus for burnouts, but it hooks up so well that your burnouts are kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Because you also have vacuum actuated brakes, and you start losing vacuum as the motor's revving up. And
I don't know if you remember that time. It was somebody's birthday, and I packed about 4 kids in the back seat and 1 person up front, and we were doing burnouts, and just all the boys were just, well, I think there was one that was crying for his mama, but the others were just like, yeah, go faster. And these are cars that change lives of young men. And I think it takes boys and it turns them into men.
Or it creates some type of lust for something, that feeling that I think all people that are incurably obsessed with cars, they got it from something, right? They had a drag strip. They saw something in a grocery store parking lot. They got a ride from a debatably sane person.
But I'm sure they all went home, told their parents, and it's like the Griots really have a bad rap around the country.
I do know you're responsible for 2 additional Chevelle purchases from 2 of my close friends.
Okay.
One of them, I gave them the ride, and then the other one now currently owns a Chevelle that he bought, in his 30s when he could afford a Chevelle that didn't have Swiss cheese for floors.
Yeah.
So
Which is
you definitely rubbed off on some people, good or bad.
It's a great car. It's a great style. I just love the Coke bottle, fenders.
Chevelle was a standalone model by this point, right? It was a option package on the Malibu starting in 64. By 66, it was definitely its own thing. And, I don't know if it's as aggressive of a Coke bottle shape as like the Mopar.
The Camaro.
Cars.
Yeah.
but it's got enough of it. You look down the side of it, you definitely see it's got some hips.
It's not your grandmother's car anymore.
No, but it is still subtle, right? I mean, it's not like muscle car, bright green, yellow. Like it's kind of an inverse tuxedo in that it can be formal when it wants to, but then it like has a couple beers and takes its shirt off, and you're doing burnouts. So we talked about this car being numbers matching and kind of maybe the lower tier of value because of the numbers associated with it. But this car is not the most valuable car that is in the Griot family collection.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that we're talking about it as a car we can't sell. And that really has to do with all the stories that surround it.
There are just a ton of stories with this car. Your brother was married in this car. Grace, that was sitting in the passenger seat, just looks absolutely gorgeous against the black interior in her white wedding dress. And I think just all the time that, that we've spent with it in the garage working on it.
This is, a car that's special to me because, again, I think it was the door opening to your perspective and now the variety within your collection of cars that it's like, oh, I want to try this flavor, this flavor, this flavor. And all of a sudden, again, you put a ton of spice in this thing and you've got a good dish, because this thing is, I remember this was where the term grenade with a pin pulled out of it was coined in my mind, because you told me I shouldn't drive this car. So of course, when you would go out of town, I would drive this car.
Yeah.
Had bad influences for friends. And again, those same friends now own Chevelles. When you'd go out of town, this car was just speaking to me, right? And we have a nickname for her, Cha-Cha.
Cha-Cha. Yeah.
And it's not like the dirty, edgy, erotic side. It's just kind of as a dancer, right? You put your foot into it and the rear end just kind of wiggles.
She just does the little cha-cha.
What's the fear of God into you?
All over the place, the butt's wiggling around.
Yeah, but it's just, pure displacement, carbureted. It's got a nasty exhaust note, but not too much.
Yeah.
As subtle as the white may be, a teenager driving it with 4 girls in the background, their hair flopping all over the place. I was kind of like a screaming beacon of pull me over, punish me. And I remember one of the first times I snuck out in that exact scenario, I was driving around the little town we lived in, and lo and behold, going the opposite way was our IT director at the time, Ed, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And the look he gave me and the size of his mouth as his jaw dropped to the floor when he saw the scenario that was unfolding. Yeah. I don't know if it was a good on you or you are in trouble. I called you immediately, told you the scenario, which, hey, me and Tommy took the car out and we had a lot of girls in the back, and you're like, okay, thank you for telling me. Good on you.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of the mystique around this car. Like, hey, this is cool.
Yeah.
And man, there's only 2 guys and 4 girls. This is great. Like, what could be better?
Well, it's very relaxing to drive.
I don't know. Relaxing is not how I deem this car, because I've been on the other side of relaxing as well.
I'm going to give you some peyote. Next time you drive it, just hang your arm out the window with one hand on the wheel and just see if you like that.
Well, okay. I think grenade with a hand or with a pin pulled out of it is how I learned about this car. And, what is a J-turn? What is a burnout? And that same wedding that you mentioned for Philip, we drove this car, my wife and I, from Lakewood to Anacortes. It was about a 120-mile slog at 4 a.m. to catch a 7 a.m. ferry to be on time for wedding photos. Yeah. 70 plus miles an hour for that entire 120-mile stretch, depending on old headlights. And it was really relaxing. However, as soon as we arrived in the town where the ferry terminal was in, this is where Cha-Cha showed me what mortality is. The trail arm on the driver's side rear was apparently shaken loose.
Yeah.
And the bolt that was holding it to the frame had worked its way out. So as soon as the pressure of that high speed was gone, that bolt hit the deck, and the tire hit the wheel well, and the car went about 45 degrees and was bouncing violently. Luckily, some guy who had been in the casino all night knew a hot rod shop in the town, got it into the hot rod shop. They put the bolt back in, did a bolt check on every other suspension component, and drove to the ferry, made it on time. So I didn't have, my sister-in-law as a bridezilla,
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Reading me the riot act later that day. But if that had happened at 75 miles an hour, I can't imagine what would have happened in that scenario, but she took care of us just long enough to remind me, hey, pay attention.
Yeah.
Because this is a car fresh off restoration and you need to maintain me. But ultimately, I agree with you. This car is way too special, way too many stories to tell in a video like this. But it's simple. It's not the most valuable car we own, but it's extremely pleasant to drive. It makes all the right noises.
You said pleasant. I think I'm working you over.
At this point, again, when I'm sure of the mechanical, completeness of it, yeah, it's a little more pleasant. But compared to a modern car where your seat vibrates if you're backing up and water goes over the rear view camera, this thing doesn't have a radio. You don't want a radio. It doesn't have air conditioning. You don't have a top.
Yeah.
It is pure driving, and it's got gobs of torque, big heavy clutch, and great engagement. And man, it's a part of our family, and it can't go anywhere.
I agree. It's with us forever.
So this 66 Chevelle SS396 with a fire-breathing 502 and some tasteful modifications is a car we can never sell.